so excited. Everybody, we're back with another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we are talking about Fright Night Part 2 from 1988. Scott, you picked this one. It was a bit of a group collaboration.
Yeah,
we can dive into
minute.
that.
Yeah.
but
it was the right choice.
No,
I think
I think it was the right choice for a couple
Thanks,
reasons. We're going to dive in. So I'm going to ask you how we came to this in a second, Scott, but I want to say a few things up front. I think that by picking this, we have a slight high chance of the HMN effect happening, because it feels like this is like one of those movies that in the last year, the like, why isn't this more readily available chatter is getting louder and louder and louder, which usually leads to somebody figuring that shit out.
Yeah.
At
the Tommy Lee Wallace panel, somebody had yes, I was gonna say somebody had brought up that there was a German Blu-ray of this out there.
Really?
But which might mean something, it might not mean anything, but it exists.
It exists.
Yes. And
I was going to say, Kyle, this is a great time because Kyle had a very lengthy conversation with Tommy Lee Wallace at Creature Feature Weekend, where there was a lot of great stories shared about this particular film. And one of the notes that I wrote down very early on was I think I've seen this movie at most twice in my entire life.
Yep.
But it feels like such an immediate comfort film watching it. Like, it feels like a film I've seen 1,000 times. And I think it's just because it like hits that exact tone of what I was looking for in like 1998 to 2000 when I was renting videos all the time.
This movie truly has everything. It truly has everything.
Which to its detriment to a certain extent, because this motherfucker didn't need to be like an hour and 48 minutes long.
Yeah, it was almost an hour 50. And I was like, guys, I'm so sorry for this, but it really, I mean, if they would have chopped 10 minutes of exposition in the middle,
it would
where
have been
they're just like hemming and hawing about whether or not the vampires really were real, it would be an absolute classic, and we wouldn't be waiting for the HMN effect.
Yeah.
But I mean, because it really cooks when you get to the last act. I mean, there's
flies.
And it doesn't make any sense how all of the effects are in the last act.
But that also feels like a true HMN pick. Like somehow, that is. I mean, we've talked about three of those films. You know, four of these. We've talked about 4 of these films.
But like, I think that this movie is really smart. Usually I would hate this, right? I love using the end of Charlie's therapy sessions to do a very quick recap of the previous movie.
It was good. I liked it a lot.
But also establishing like Charlie doesn't believe that those events happened. Like it gives you, in literally like 3 minutes, it gives you everything you need to know to move from the first movie into the second movie. And I almost wish that same craft was placed into the middle of the movie to like speed that train along a little bit.
It's such a almost joke of how you start a movie. Do you know what I mean? Like that seems like that would be like a Simpson, like it would be like a Simpsons gag, you know? Like it seems like it wouldn't be, but it works so well here. And I think it's just the tone of both movies. The fact that these are like, they're directed by 2 very specific directors, and I don't think they're not like auteurs by any means, but horror-wise, they're like, you know, Fright Night and Part 2 are 2 specific directors, but they've matched the tone so well to both pieces. I was really impressed. This is the first time I've seen it. I hadn't seen it before.
We got to talk about. So I've got this long piece of trivia Oh,
no! Sorry, I was trying to time it with.
I don't have enough trivia. That's fine. Let's screw the trivia. What was that sound?
This is just a sexy movie, so I went birds and bees. I just thought there was just so much sex in this movie, and I really wanted to try this beer, so it's maybe a Hail Mary. It's an Aretita is the brewery, and it's a saison with wildflower honey and Matuka hops. Ooh, sounds very I'm gonna try.
And I have a very, very special, ridiculous thing that I am going to hate. It is a Smirnoff Ice, but it's not just any Smirnoff Ice. It's a red, white, and berry, which you guys know what a bomb pop is, right? Mm-hmm. Like or a rocket pop. It's also called.
Yeah.
So this is a college movie, and I specifically picked this. Well, first of all, let's see how bad it is. That's pretty bad.
Sweet.
It's worse than regular Smirnoff Ice. It's got like a sour aftertaste. Why? It's supposed to no. Oh, that's bad.
They sell the nips of Smirnoff Red, White, and Berry, just the vodka as well.
It's a vodka. Okay.
Well, you're drinking I think you're drinking a malt version of
this is what Smirnoff Ice was. It's like in a glass. Yeah. It's 12 ounces. Yeah, 11.2 ounces. There's a hole. They got me.
A favorite of the evil alien conquerors, as Patreon members know. But
well, so the first half of it, I was like, I have to get a Smirnoff Ice because that's like the gateway drug when you go to college and you didn't drink in high school. I mean, if you drank in high school, it was your gateway drug then. I mean, like
it was our natural wine cooler. Like it was not natural. It was the progression of wine coolers too. Then Smirnoff Ices.
Yeah, the natural
Mike's Hard
Lemonade
Lemonades
wine cooler.
Yeah.
It was between this and a Mike's Hard Lemonade, and I was like, no, I didn't drink Mike's Hard Lemonades in college. It was Smirnoff Ices, and they were. I mean, I didn't like them, but it was just like people would give them to you, and you're like, okay, well, I want to get drunk, so I'm gonna drink this anyway. That's the first half of it. The second half of it is that I didn't grow up with bomb pops. Now, for the uninitiated listeners, a bomb pop is
what happened?
What?
Why didn't you grow up with them?
It just wasn't part of
wild. It just wasn't in Ohio.
I didn't know. I never ever saw them. Maybe it's because I grew up in the country and there wasn't an ice cream truck.
That's probably why, because I don't think I see them in the stores. Like it's definitely an ice cream truck special.
I actually have a box of them in the basement freezer.
Big it up for lost time.
Yeah. No, I'm not making up for lost time because I've been out of college for 20 years, and I this is my first box that I've purchased. But in college, in the cafeteria, you'd get your food and then you'd sit down and you'd eat it, or you'd talk with your friends, and then on your way out you'd grab an ice cream from the ice cream, like one of those slidey things, like one of those little cases with the slidey top. You go to the gas station.
You all know what
I'm trying to paint the picture, and I'm having a hard time. Anyway, so it was always bomb pops for me. And the thing is what you would do is you would fight your way through the red. You would then eat as much of the blue as possible, because for the people that don't know what they are, which apparently it's nobody but me when I was 18. It goes red, white, and blue. The red is cherry, the white is lime, the blue is blue raspberry. And the lime is the only part that's really good. You fight through the cherry.
I was going to say, I feel like there's two people who strongly disagrry with you.
That's because you ate a bomb pop as an adult.
The cherry and the blue raspberry and be like, oh, lime, get the fuck out of my face.
I am flabbergasted. I'm sorry, Scott. You're just
I know I live my life on hard mode most of the time anyway, but really the way that I eat bomb pops is just awful, because you eat the red and you eat the blue, and then you try and keep the yellow or the white on the stick so that you can completely it last.
No wonder you bought those toxic waste things.
You've painted a Salvador Dali version of eating a bomb pop. It's completely fucking surreal. It also, is insane.
I have an anecdote about bomb pops from literally 3 days ago. I was on call last week, and when I'm on call, it sucks because my phone, the ringer is on, and literally I get alerts from work at all hours of the night. And so I got an alert at 1 a.m. I was like, oh, this fucking sucks. And so I went to my computer and I worked on it for a second, and I was waiting for something to complete. And so I went to the kitchen, went to the freezer, and I got a bomb pop out. Megan typically does not get out of bed when I get out of bed, especially when I'm on call. But she came out and she caught me eating this bomb pop, and she goes, she got there, and I said, you know what this is. And you'd think that was the punchline. It wasn't. The punchline was, in my like loopiness, I go, these colors don't run. And I took a big bite out of the yellow, and the rest of it fell off of the fucking
Oh man. Who would have known? Does this come out in November? Hopefully not.
No, this is August.
Okay, great. Just making sure.
All right, so the
Back to
trivia
school,
that I was
baby.
going to get into this before we got absolutely insane. This is, to me, the most interesting and crazy part about this entire film. So some of you may have learned this from Kyle's talk with Tommy Lee Wallace. I'm going to read the IMDb version of it, and then I remember something from the interview, but I'll let Kyle see if he remembers anything from the interview first, and then if he doesn't, I'll fill in the gap. But here's the factoid that it said. Soon after filming was wrapped, McDowell and Fright Night creator Tom Holland were scheduled to meet with Live Entertainment chairman Jose Mendez to discuss making a third film, but the plans died with Mendez, who is infamously murdered by his sons. As a direct,
that's right.
Okay.
As a direct consequence of this horrific tragedy, Part 2 ended up losing its planned countrywide distribution and played at only a single theater in Los Angeles and another theater in New York, which directly resulted in poor box office results, even though its pre-theater results were quite good, and being released almost straight to video. Since all the movie's planned promos and ads were also canceled, most people never even learned of the film's existence until they eventually noticed it in their local video store, which I just want to throw out there. This movie, in its box office run, made $3 million, which is wildly impressive for playing
theater?
at two theaters.
$3 million. That's awesome.
That's really great. Kyle, do you remember the story that Tommy Lee Wallace told about the night Jose Mendez was murdered?
So I remember the setup, and I don't remember exactly what Roddy McDowell had called him. Is that right?
Yes.
Roddy McDowell had called Tommy Lee Wallace and to share the news. Now I don't remember exactly what he said, but because I think my jaw was just on the floor and I had eaten a lot of Doritos before we had done this interview. But I remember because Jordan and I talked about this. There were moments where I think both of us just sort of like blacked out on this interview because as two filmmakers ourselves, to see Tommy Lee Wallace talk about like Roddy McDowell calling him to then have this guy, So if you could finish it, Matt, that would be lovely.
Basically what happened was the morning before Jose Mendez was murdered, they had a very heated lunch with Jose Mendez about the distribution of the movie. And when the news came out, McDowell called Tommy Lee Wallace to break the news and then asked, "It wasn't you, was it?"
Oh,
yes. Because because the meeting got so heated, he was like, "You would tell me if this was you, right? Like, I need to know that you didn't follow this guy home."
That is
and
a crazy
end his
wrestling thought process right there.
Yes, right. It wasn't you, was it?
Just making sure.
We had a lot of fun on that interview. You posted it, Matt.
It's on our feed and it's on the Camp Nightmare feed. So there's two different ways to find it.
Not to push it, but like I was also really happy we picked this movie because I hadn't seen it. We'd had those talks. I hadn't really I kind of assumed that you all had talked about it. I didn't bother to look. It just seemed like it fell right into
we haven't done
it's a hard movie to find. For a long time, it was a hard movie to find. I have a VHS PS version. I'm actually glad I watched the YouTube version because the YouTube version's like HD quality. It
looked so good that's why I'm shocked that there's no blue of it that's readily available.
It came out on it was an 8 or a 10 pack of the Milk. Was it Milk Creek? It came out with, and it was an amazing 10 pack. It had like Class of 1999, Slaughter High,
No, I don't think this
no,
is
it's
on
not
this,
on
'cause
that
this is
one
the
because
one
that's
that
one I
Kyle-
had.
Yeah, Scott and I have this.
Okay,
Had
maybe I'm just
Mall,
placing
right?
the
In class of 2000.
Yeah. Okay.
the
All right. Forgive me. I was placing
You
the
must be
white...
confusing it for Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College,
Oh,
which
the
is
other
like an
college movie.
understandable mistake.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. I could have swore it was
Very
on that.
similar film.
It was on that pack, but I
I
No,
don't think it was because this is only
it
my second
literally has-
watch.
I know that you guys have it, so if it's not on there, I don't
Yeah.
own it. If it's not on there,
So
then it's not on there.
have either of you seen? So the box art that I keep seeing for this is similar to the original Fright Night,
Yes,
which is like
that's the one that I know.
the vampire cloud over like a college dorm. But the VHS box that I remember, and I'm
Is the
sure you
white
can
one.
find this online, it's just all white
Yeah.
with a vampire
that-
face in
yeah.
the corner and like
It's
the
that
little
lady
part.
vampire face, right?
Yeah.
I love that poster. I love.
Yeah.
I
that
love
artwork
the simplicity of that
Yeah.
poster so much.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I think
that
it's a
actually
really
is
cool
the one that I'm more familiar with. I had completely blocked that out of my mind for some reason, but you're right, Matt. That is, I think, what
That's what the video
store
had, for
version.
sure.
Yes, I maybe the vampire face cloud over the dorm was for a DVD or something.
It probably was for
later?
a poster, is what I'm going to guess.
Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
guess that when they made the theatrical poster, they went with that because, like, obviously, if you're doing like a sequel, you want it to have the familiar
Yeah.
imagery for the movie poster. But I guess once they were like, "Fuck, we're just going to push it straight to video," they just went with the cheapest box they could do, and they actually made a pretty iconic
It looks
box
good.
art.
Yeah.
By doing
I always
it. Like,
confuse that with, wasn't there like another Fright Night 2 where they go to college in Europe or something? I want to say there was one that was really bad in the 90s.
no, I know that there's a sequel to the remake of Fright Night.
Oh, is that that must have been what
That-
it was like, direct to streaming?
Yeah,
or
like a
something,
direct
or-
to streaming, direct to DVD Fright Night 2. That was like probably
Okay, that's-
2013.
Okay, yeah, that
Uh,
would have been
but-
the right timing.
But I have to call out a couple things. It's behind Kyle if you're watching on Patreon. I mean, the rollerblading.
Oh, no, those are roller
werecat
skates, buddy.
vampire.
Those are
roller
skates.
skating, whatever.
It'd be so
This
much cooler if they were
movie-
rollerblades in 1988.
Dude,
This
like
movie
ahead of the
has-
curve.
This movie has so many awesome moments. Like, I know that we've given it a lot of crap for the lull that is in the middle of the movie. But there are some great moments, and I just want to rattle a few of them out. Like, first of all, roller skating vampire, great first
Right
kill.
out the gate. Yeah, right out
the
the
movie.
gate. Like we're like talking like maybe first 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. It's great.
Followed by the strangest cover of Louie Louie I
Yeah.
have ever heard, because it sounds like it's almost a cappella mixed with rock. Because it's like the voice is going like Louie Louie, but in the background, along with the instruments, is another voice just going dot 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 dot. like it is so strange. But that plays to introduce the character of Louie, who was originally written to be Evil Ed. The actor who played Evil Ed was filming 369 Evil, so they just changed it to a different character and cast motherfucking Uncle Rico to show up as this like kind of werewolf vampire.
It's a vampire, but he looks like a lycanthrope.
Right.
He's a dog.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I think it's
I love
playing
the
off the
creature
fact-
designs in here.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I think it's
so
playing
good.
off again. It makes sense that it was originally supposed to be Evil Ed because Evil Ed did turn into a wolf when he got
Yeah.
like staked in the end of the last one. The bit where she closes the
his
window and
nails.
it's all the nails clicking
so
onto the floor.
great
It's
bit of
like
business.
it's so good. And then immediately after that, like it's like it's like you get the roller skating vampire. You get the window scene where you first see Uncle Rico. And then you get this awesome like POV from a bat crane shot, just kind of like careening through the college.
Mhm.
And I was just like, man, this is like introducing all of these different characters that are our main like group of villains, like our group of bad guys. It's just like cool shit after cool shit. But then like my notes stop for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
of the movie.
Until the third
Like,
act. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, like it starts so this movie has so many second act issues. Like it's not even that it's like issues. It's just like you could have consolidated so many of these scenes to like move it quicker. But one of my favorite bits in the middle is like one of the plot points is that Louis is trying to take Charlie's girlfriend throughout this and keeps like finding situations to like be there when he knows Charlie's going to be distracted from other stuff. And there's a bit where a dog starts barking at him and he turns around and it's just a quick shot of him with the wolf face scaring the dog away. Yeah. It looks fucking awesome. It's so like gnarly. It's so delightful. And then Charlie in this one actually starts turning into a vampire, which is probably the biggest like upgrade from the first movie. So you get these bits that we've seen before. I won't name any movies in particular for potential double feature purposes, but like he gets an overly garlicked pizza. He's wearing sunglasses now. Like he's having these vampiric issues. But I gotta say, as a person who's not huge on garlic, I'll put some garlic. You gotta be a psychopath if your special pizza is a full ball of garlic is smashed into it.
No, like, you're also wrong. You're also wrong on that. No, you put all the garlic on the pizza.
It's not raw garlic, Matt. It's roasted garlic. Is like
either way.
And I'm allergic to fucking garlic, and I know this.
I'm fine with that. Here's the thing. You give the buyer the chance to add the garlic. To just smash it into the pizza is chaos. That's why pizza places have the garlic shakers, man. I shake a shit ton of garlic and red peppers onto my pizzas when I get them.
But buddy, I hate to break it to you, but that's not garlic. That's Parmesan.
Oh,
like the shakers are fucking Parmesan.
Tastes great.
Are you fucking with me?
I am fucking with you a little bit.
You are.
I was thinking of the
jerk.
red peppers over garlic, but I was
Yeah.
As soon as I started saying it, I was like, "That's red peppers. That's not garlic." But just keep going.
I hope that nobody calls me out on it. Have you podcasted with me before?
Nope. Who are you people?
Who are you people?
There is one bit as a person who believes himself to be in the world of the school of comedy, the rule of threes. And the one bit that they do the rule of threes with that I love so much is the constant calling back to the bowling alley. Where his therapist first tells him to go to the bowling alley to clear his head. And then Louis pissed off that he can't date the one girl. And the guy's advice is to go to the bowling alley. And then we come back to the bowling alley. And this is where I think the movie really starts to like up the ante, is when we get the head coming out of the ball return in the bowling alley.
Just waiting for
and
it.
I was, the whole time I'm like, if we don't get a head coming out of this ball return,
because I forgot that part exists.
Yes, same. I remembered the first like 10 minutes of this movie clear as day, and I remembered the last 10 minutes of this movie clear as day, and everything in the middle doesn't exist.
It's just
I forgot the end. All I knew was the beginning and the dance that that they when they go to like the vampire party. I remember the vampire party. That's it.
Yeah.
And what's her name?
She does the dance on Fright Night.
Regine.
She becomes Regine. Yeah. Regine comes the host of Fright Night. Let me ask you a question, Scott, because you are the king of vampire information, as you've said before.
I do know a lot lot about vampires, guys.
Would they have even be able to film her to be broadcasted on television?
Cameras require mirrors. There's no fucking way Regine could be on camera. That's like one of my only notes before we get to all the kills that I just wanted to remember at the end. It was driving me nuts, but I was like, you know what? It's just fantasy. Maybe Regine is so strong.
But no, I wrote the same note.
Right, exactly. She can't, if the cross isn't bothering her, like right out the gate, like the reflection of a reflection of a reflection. Maybe that dwindles the power of things.
I just wish that they didn't already establish that she didn't have a reflection.
Well, they didn't establish
15 minutes earlier.
I don't think it was her. I think it was the cat. Oh, was it the cat guy and her, or was it the cat guy and one of the other
both
vampires?
Of them that he saw didn't cast reflection.
Because Peter Vincent had his like cigarette case, and he looked back. I remember the cat person. I really wish that I had written down that character's name, but I don't think we ever heard it.
I don't think so either.
But in any case, I guess you're right that she isn't visible in that. I couldn't remember who the second vampire was that was dancing, but it must have been the two of them.
All right.
Who cares? Who fucking cares?
Who cares? Let's get into this third act. Let's get to what your
Matt,
price
I think
of
that we need to
admission
talk
is.
about, though. Do you want to talk about why we picked that? Why we as a group?
Sure.
Picked
Well,
this?
let's just go into this. Was like a 2 days before the recording date, last second change up.
Yeah.
And it was put to a vote. And you had sent me a couple movies that you were looking at on your long list.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you had sent Fright Night at the exact same time that I typed, why don't we just do something like Fright Night Part 2? Because that had been like really low on your long list.
I completely forgot that it was even there.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know why we don't just do this one, because like, if I feel like this just screams horror movie night. You know what I mean? Like, this feels like when you think of like, what are the movies that would, if we were still doing the trading cards every year for Comic-Con, like Fright Night Part 2, that white box cover is such a perfect trading card thing for us.
But then
like,
Tommy Lee Wallace would have stopped and said, hey,
he would have he would have tried to clarify some stuff.
No, he wouldn't have, because he signed my Halloween 3 NES box.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He did. He did not care.
No, he's on the fly list. He's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, but all right, let's talk about these kills though. So the first one is Louie's like library death, where we get this fully transformed Louie face finally, and she shoves the wild roses into Louie's mouth. And I love the symmetry of like, she kind of calls Charlie's love of horror lowbrow, and he calls out like, there are tons of great examples of like this beautiful art form, and he mentions Bram Stoker's Dracula, which leads to her going to the library and reading the book, and the only reason that she's able to save them is because she read the book and read that wild roses
fast, because she's the smartest person I know besides my wife.
But we get this. She shoves those wild roses in, and we get this awesome wolf puppet head that's like spitting flames out of it and stuff.
Awesome.
It is amazing.
But I also, I kind of didn't know that there was going to be more effects at that level, just because I didn't have a knowledge of the movie. And I was like, oh, wow, they really got that one. Like, but we have a lot of movie left. Like, I hope
it's any consolation. I thought that was the end of it too. I knew.
Yeah, I was like, that's got to be it. Like, that was awesome.
and then we get the one kid, probably the least interesting of the crew, is the guy who just eats bugs all day.
Brian Thompson.
Renfield.
Yeah, I know.
That is a great kill. That is an awesome kill.
The kill is awesome. The character is uninteresting.
No, I like him because he's like, you're supposed to bite her. He keeps he keeps saying that. And if you want to talk about rule of threes, I'm pretty sure that he says it 3 times.
He says that 3 times. That's true.
Yeah, but that deflating body full of bugs was nuts. I was like, that is craftsmanship. I was like, that is gorgeous.
Very gross. Like, I don't really grossed out a lot, but that was like
that was gnarly.
Gross.
That was gnarly.
And then we immediately follow that with like a full gel face melt from the roller skating.
Rivals.
We missed a couple deaths. Yeah, so the vampire psychiatrist.
That's right.
You missed the fact that Charlie's psychiatrist is actually a vampire, and he goes after.
It's a spin-off movie in and of itself.
Alex.
My psychiatrist is
Alex, his girlfriend.
Yeah. And I love that he's like doing his psychobabble with Alex, and he's like, that really hurts. I know how this must feel.
Yes.
That you've just done this thing. And then he's like, let me help. He tries to pull it out, and he's like, let me help. And then he like basically continues to impale himself. And he's like, you may leave. So good. And then you also forgot that Richie, who is the stand-in for Evil Ed, he gets the holy water to the face death, which is also super gnarly. It's so good.
Yeah.
So
these kills are so good. Yeah.
So there's a really sad story about the actor who played Richie as well that I found doing research. So right after that actor landed the role of Richie, he was actually diagnosed with AIDS. And given that this is 1988, at that point, that's just like essentially a death sentence.
Yeah.
So he said that he wanted to make this movie before he died. And was very open with like Tommy Lee Wallace and the rest of the crew about his health. At that point, there was very little known about how the disease could be transferred. So they actually, to make sure that his final wishes were made, they went through a bunch of precautions just to make sure that no vampire fangs would like pierce his skin or cause any blood to be drawn on set, but like they worked around it to make sure that he could still make this movie before he passed away, which I think is kind of beautiful in a still very like not understanding the disease at that time.
Well, how would they know?
Kind of
like,
way.
it's not like the CDC had any sort of guideline.
Had anything.
It reminds me of like that. What is that little boy who got a blood transfusion and then he got HIV from the blood transfusion, and it was this whole thing, and the kind of fucked. I mean, it made like a Hallmark movie about it, and I had to watch it in elementary school or something. But something, I think his last name was White. But it was like this whole thing where it humanized HIV and AIDS for Middle America. I mean, it's so fucked up that we had to take a little boy, little white boy, to humanize what was considered the gay plague. I mean, that's really fucked up, but also we can thank the, Reagan administration for a lot of that.
No shit, dude.
But yeah, I can't quite remember the name of that, but
Scott, do you want to know what the final film role was for this actor?
Sure.
His name is Merritt. Man, I hate that I'm about to say this because what a last name. His name is Merritt Buttrick. But I read it as Butt Rock for a second, and I just had to pause to double check. After Fright Night Part 2, his final film role was as the character of David in 1989's Death Spa.
Oh,
bro.
Hell yeah.
That is, those are two bangers to end your career.
Absolutely.
Like,
that is way more impressive than being one of the stars of Square Pegs and appearing in Star Trek 2 and 3.
It's a lot of merit behind those two films.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty good joke.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out the wording on that one. Matt, you had mentioned, you had mentioned this beautiful version of Charlie being like, there's beauty in these stories, like they're interesting, like go read Dracula. But then later on, he flies off the handle when she mentions a slight against Bloodsuckers from Beyond. And I just thought, I laughed so hard. I was like, man, if this doesn't represent every horror podcaster that us, and God bless us included. I was like,
do not slander that.
When he like flew off the handle, walked away, and then came back and apologized within like 3 seconds. I was like, wow. Perfect. I feel seen and also attacked at exactly the same time.
Well, so we'll get into this in a second, actually, because there's also a great call out reference towards the very end. So Regine transforms into the same type of bat monster that we saw in the first movie. I don't think this is as awesome as the first movie's bat monster, but it's still pretty impressive. It's pretty good. She makes a comment because she's about to turn Charlie fully. And as she's like making all the threats, McDowell is climbing up this ladder to escape Peter Vincent. And she says, "There goes your fearless vampire hunter," which is, of course, a very famous Hammer vampire comedy, which I just thought, oh, that's beautiful. But I have to say, the plan of reflecting the sunlight off of a mirror directly into her in the basement, such a fun, cool idea for that kill. And like the puppet in flames, the like skeletal hand coming out of the grave, the filling her coffin with communion wafers so she can't get into it. Like, it's such a fun final.
It's like the Home Alone of like How to Kill a Vampire. It's very fun.
Yes, it's an absolute blast.
I have to point out something. I don't think that you guys missed this, but I don't want us to finish our conversation without pointing this out for the listener. The thing that makes this movie work for me, beyond the sweet special effects, is the fact that they inverted all of Fright Night in Fright Night Part 2, where Alex is the one that goes after Charlie instead of Charlie going after his girlfriend in the first one. And I loved that because it was, I don't know, it felt so right. Like, how else would you make a follow-up to such an iconic, and I hate to use the word, but perfect horror movie? Like, I think that Fright Night is pretty untouchable.
So here's what I'm going to say about Fright Night Part 2. And this is coming through the lens of what I've said in the past, where I still think that this movie is just like 10 minutes too long.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
there are valid criticisms to throw at Fright Night Part 2. I have said this before, that one of the reasons why I cite a movie like Dream Warriors as being a perfect example of how to do a sequel is that it pushes the lore forward. It recreates the moments of terror and the pacing that you want it from the previous movie, but still like advances everything and levels everything up and like makes your leads more compelling. Like it does. I think that this follows in that same note of like, this could have been a carbon copy of the first Fright Night movie.
Totally.
And like, it's not. It follows a lot of the groundwork. It follows a lot of the pacing. It follows a lot of that, but it still feels different enough and like it elevated where the last movie left off that it just works really well. This is, especially for like late 80s, which is kind of looked at as a time of just like lifeless bad sequels to beloved movies. I actually think that Fright Night Part 2 stands on stronger legs than a great many of the other sequels out there. Like it's actually really well done. And I think that goes to Tommy Lee Wallace. I think Tommy Lee Wallace might be one of the best sequel directors in horror. Like he just knows how to do something that checks all the right boxes while still feeling different enough.
Yeah, he does. I think that he has and that I based on our conversation that we had, I feel like a lot of it is based on his art background. So like not filmic arts, but like, you know, art direction, production design, like all of these things that tell a story, I think maybe a lot more than people give them credit for. So then when he's coming in and understanding sort of the basis of where we've come from, Fright Night, even Halloween, in a sense, like Halloween 3 conceptually completely different, but does it not fit the tone of Carpenter's first and Rosenthal's second, and like all of that, right? Like it does fit into that, even if it's completely haywire. I have not seen Vampires Los Muertos yet, but as soon as I do,
curious.
I have it on my list for the show. I don't know if we need to do it or if I'm just throwing a Kyle pick out there.
Listen, you know, I don't know. I know that we all didn't enjoy John Carpenter's Vampires,
but it gives me hope that we might enjoy.
But a Tommy Lee Wallace directed sequel starring John Bon Jovi does feel like it's a must-do for this show eventually.
Yeah. It tickles my fancy just a little bit.
And honestly, like, not for nothing, I feel like I could stomach 90 minutes of John Bon Jovi better than stomaching more James Woods. So like that also, like that feels like that might help.
We got to go to his restaurant.
Yeah, boy do we. All right. So Scott, this was your pick. Let's talk double features. What would you double feature with this?
Question. Am I a bad friend?
No, I've never considered you a bad friend.
You a bad friend either. Like,
well, you might after this because I'm going to go with my best friend's a vampire.
God damn it! Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, I almost feel like I don't need to pick a second one. That is the best comparison to this movie. Like, I actually think that My Best Friend's a Vampire is still more successful at pacing, but this is legitimately way more of a horror movie than that is. So it really just depends on, do you want to watch an 80s teen comedy or do you want to watch a horror movie? And depending on which one that is, just watch My Best Friend is a Vampire or Fright Night Part 2. But they are a lot of the same paces, a lot of the similar like shots and content and everything else. Kyle, have you seen My Best Friend's a Vampire?
Nope.
That's so good. I thought I was going to hate it, but I absolutely loved every second of it.
Yeah, it's you've done it for the show, right?
Yeah. A while ago, yeah.
So I don't think I have.
Kyle, you go, and I'll try to see if I can think of something else. I think Scott's
it's not. I'm gonna go Howling 2, because I just as truly the B picture. This is the main thing, and then more sex, more weirdness, more everything. Christopher Lee, like just more stuff that tonally matches what this is sort of like riffing on, but does so in such a B picture like 80s weirdness thing. So there was a lot. I mean, I wrote down like 4, but that was the first one that came to mind, and I still stick by it.
All right, and I'll go with what I think is a little bit more obvious, but I still think that My Best Friend is a Vampire is the correct answer. Monster Squad, the other movie where Uncle Rico plays a werewolf.
Yeah, I wrote down.
Well, guys, speaking of Monster Squad, I don't know, it's just a good movie. We like it a lot here. But if you go to hmmpodcast.com, you can go and buy t-shirts. You can mostly buy t-shirts, but you can also find our back catalog. If you search HMN Podcast on any social media, you'll find our Facebook group, you'll find our Instagram page, and you'll find our TikTok, and you might even find our Patreon, patreon.com/HMN Podcast. Go and throw some donations our way, get some bonus episodes, get some video content, get some early access to episodes, get a newsletter from us. Hey, did I say the word newsletter? There's a Patreon newsletter where you get to know about the movies in advance. But if you email us at hmnpodcast@gmail.com, wow, I really stumbled through that. Take 2. If you send us an email at hmnpodcast@gmail.com, we can sign you up for our monthly newsletter, which recaps the past month on the show, tells you places where you can meet us. All of us write these nice little essay blurbs. It's a fun little monthly newsletter from your friends here at Horror Movie Night. And with all that said and done, Scott, what is something that you want to talk about, be it movies, music, podcasts, etc.?
All right, so I'm gonna keep it short, but I was feeling a little vampy after watching this last night, so I followed it up. I literally followed it up, and I felt like I should have picked this as my my double feature, but I thought it'd be funnier to take yours. But I watched Renfield finally, and
it's fun.
It is so fun. I mean, I'll probably not watch it again, but I really loved it. I really liked Nick Cage is just absolutely ridiculous in it. The special effects are fun. I mean, there's a lot of CGI, but the practical stuff is fun. And I really like the addition of, because I don't think it's in the lore. Tell me if I missed it, because I definitely missed that wild roses can hurt vampires. That's the most oddball piece of trivia I did not know about vampires. I don't think that Renfield ever before the movie Renfield was able to gain super strength by eating bugs, but totally fine with it in that movie. It's a lot of fun.
I'll go next. There was a documentary that I've been hearing about for years that dropped on Netflix this week, and I made Barb watch it with me, and it was one of those things where, it's not a horror movie, but it certainly feels like it at certain points. And it's a documentary called Tickled about the
Tickled, dude.
Have you seen Tickled?
Yeah, we showed many of friends who are no longer our friends. Tickled. I'm just kidding. They're still our friends. But yeah,
so
talk about
Tickled. Tickled is from this New Zealand pop culture journalist who did the Dark Tourism TV series for Netflix recently.
Okay, yeah.
But he basically, his job in New Zealand was to find weird and interesting things in pop culture to write articles about. And he stumbled upon this website where you could get paid to be a competitive tickler. And the videos involved like an athletic guy handcuffed to a bed while other athletic guys tickled him. So he put an inquiry about like, hey, I'd love to interview somebody from this organization for my newspaper. And instead of like a no, or instead of just like no response at all, they basically responded with a bunch of like homophobic shit about him because he's gay, and just being like, we would never let like an F word like you ruin the sanctity of competitive tickling, a very heterosexual sport. And he was just like, the response was so over the top that he was like, well, now I'm doubling down and I'm going to do like a full documentary about this.
Yeah, he goes full PI on it.
He goes full PI trying to figure out what it is. And the thing that's crazy that like becomes super uncomfortable is that there seems to be, and watch the documentary because there's so many more layers to this than what I'm saying, but it seems to be no real financial end game with this. Someone is paying people a shit ton of money to fly to LA and film these weird videos that they just put online for free. Like there's no way that they're making any monetization. You can watch the, well, they imply that it could also be power, because
it's a fetish.
anytime any of these people have requested the video get taken down because they regret making it, this person will buy multiple URLs in their name and ruin the SEO for this person, so that anytime you Google them, all you get is their tickle videos.
So weird.
It just gets stranger and stranger as it goes down. But yeah, definitely worth the 90-minute watch. We were getting very tired because it was like 10:30 when it was wrapping up, and I'm 100 years old apparently now. But like, she was like, should we go to bed? I'm like, we're just so close. I need to know what is happening. Like, I can't go to bed without answers. I need to finish this.
I don't know, it's probably not on Netflix, but there is an additional like mini documentary about like what happened after the film was released that I would recommend. I don't remember the name of it, but
I'll definitely look into that too. But yeah, Tickled.
It is so good. It's like very, you know, if for interests of true crime, for interests of like what the fuck stories, for like it has everything. It really does. Just like Fright Night Part 2. Yeah, it's really good. I'm glad you watched it. I'm tickled that you watched it.
How about you, Kyle? What did you watch?
I watched Jeff Nichols' The Bike Riders. I don't get a lot of time to go to a movie theater, and I just got back from vacation and I missed Long Legs, and like I'm gonna try to get to Long Legs, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. But I found a Monday matinee, because I live in a more summery area that the theaters have added matinees now during the week. Hopefully that remains. But I got to go see Bike Riders at like 11 o'clock on a Monday morning. But the Bike Riders is, I love sort of these like slice of life Americana films that that are not so sort of like prestige, or prestige is not the right word. Anyway, they don't like, they're pompous. They're not like pompous about like, hey, we're presenting this right. Like I think like a thing like, unfortunately, Green Book falls into this category, right? Where they're trying to present something and it just is like ass backwards. And it's like that clearly has some other themes that make it problematic, but you can still sort of like problematically expose a slice of life. Hillbilly Elegy is one of those things, for example, that doesn't, you know, anyway, I'm sorry.
Wait. Are you're against Hillbilly Elegy, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Okay, wanted woo!
Let's
put the show.
Yeah,
for real.
I think that like there can be a tone deafness when you dive in and you just try to present maybe an aesthetic of a thing and without really being like, oh, this is what it's about. And obviously, the Bike Riders does have pre-existing material that it's built upon. There was a photo book and, you know, photojournalism about this, you know, this biker club that existed in the Midwest. But at the same time, it did feel like a really proper depiction of that culture. And I thought it was an appropriate depiction and how bike culture shifted gears at some point in time. But Tom Hardy and Austin Butler are unreal. And unfortunately, you know, I didn't recognize the actress. Let me get her name, because it's she, you know, while those two actors were fantastic, Jodie Comer as Kathy, who is sort of the narrator along with the photojournalist, incredible. The accents are like, it's such a real, like, you really buy into the experience of the movie. So if you like those sort of like slice of life, gives you a few years of like what's going on with these people, and you just kind of like buy into it, if you're into that type of movie, highly recommend it. Like, the drama is somewhat high. It's not extravagant. It's very like, it just feels very real. It feels very reflective of a time without being over dramatic. So I like the Bike Riders a lot.
All right. Well, we will be bike next week with more
you guys are insane.
horror movie night content.
I didn't do this.